Hello YouTube, this is Let's Talk Horror and welcome back to another video. Okay guys, so we are going to dive into the I Know What You Did Last Summer franchise today with I Know What You Did Last Summer 1997. I'm going to give my thoughts on that movie today and obviously the big reason is in just over a week from now, we are going to have a new installment in the I Know What You Did Last Summer franchise to talk about with I Know What You Did Last Summer 2025. Every slasher movie is getting a legacy sequel these days, and it's time for I Know What You Did Last Summer to get one, I guess. So we are going to talk about I Know What You Did Last Summer 1997 in this video today. Let's read a quick synopsis, and I will be discussing spoilers. The movie is nearly 30 years old. If you don't want the movie spoiled for you, you can go watch it, come back here and get my thoughts on it and see if you agree or you disagree. But if you don't know, here is what I Know What You Did Last Summer is about. A year after running over a fisherman and dumping his body in the water, four friends reconvene when Julie receives a frightening letter telling her that their crime was seen. While pursuing who he thinks is responsible for the letter, Barry is run over by a man with a meat hook. The bloodletting only increases from there as the killer with the hook continues to stalk Julie, Helen, and Ray. And that is your synopsis for I Know What You Did Last Summer. And let's dive right into the positives. Well, first of all, that hook of this movie I think is really interesting, where it puts our protagonists, the people that the audience are supposed to be rooting for in this situation, it puts us in a position where we see them commit this horrible crime of they murder a man. They run over a man and they dump his body. And that is interesting to me because it puts the audience in the position of having to root for these people when we know that they've committed this horrible thing. The first murder of the movie is committed by the protagonists of the movie who are being chased by the slasher villain. And I think that's a really interesting, unique kind of twist on it. I think it puts the audience and puts the audience in a weird place where they have some mixed emotions toward all these characters. And it allows us to explore these characters and give more depth to these kind of prototypical slasher characters. And it makes them more than just, fodder for the killer. We actually get to see how this tragedy and how running over this person and in their mind murdering this person has affected their lives. We see how in one way or another, they tried different solutions to block it out of their mind. Some tried to get away, like in the case of Julie James, she tried to get away from this town and go to college and start her, life, and it didn't work. And then yet others try to stay around and deal with their guilt, and it didn't work. And, we do see how it's all derailed their lives in the year that has passed. And I think that's really interesting, and it's a really interesting journey. These are not just prototypical slasher characters that all they are is fodder for the killer and to add to the body count. We actually explore the trauma and the pain they have gone through in the year since this tragedy. But at the heart of it, I should say, look, as far as the characters themselves, at least before the tragedy, they are not groundbreaking slasher characters. Julie James, played by Jennifer Love Hewitt, is kind of the prototypical good girl. She's kind of has that girl next door vibe. She's a straight A student from what we have seen. She's, kind of that prototypical bubbly, nice girl. Sarah Michelle Gellar's character of Helen is kind of the prototypical spoiled, daddy's little girl princess character. Barry is kind of the prototypical jock douche character. And then Ray is kind of the prototypical, handsome, nice guy. But it's elevated by the performances, especially Jennifer Love Hewitt is great in this movie. We get a lot out of her performance. We see a lot of range. We see the phases she kind of goes through from where she was before the tragedy and the accident to, where we see her, where she's this very traumatized, broken person that's ravaged with guilt, to kind of her badass moment of the what are you waiting for moment where she's finally like, you know what, I'm done with this. We're dealing with this now. We're done with this. We're moving on.
Don't you see? He's got us now. Okay, this is exactly what he wants. We can't go to the police. Not now. He's made sure of that. He's just out there and he's watching us and waiting. What are you waiting for, huh? What are you waiting for?
You know, she goes through all these different phases, and I enjoyed following along with her, and I enjoyed following all these characters, even though they were fairly cookie-cutter slasher characters. You know, I would still say the performances are strong enough to where it elevates them a little bit. And then just the setting of like this small fisherman village, I think is what Ray has described it as. I just like that setting. And then overall, I do think the fisherman himself is a pretty cool slasher villain, kind of an underrated slasher villain. I like the slicker look and the hook, even though the hook is not the most intimidating signature weapon for a slasher villain. I do like the look. I think the fisherman look is pretty cool. So kind of an underrated slasher villain in that sense. If I had to say anything about the film itself, if I had to come up with any negative, is that while it's a solid slasher, guys, it's a solid slasher. The performances are solid. It has that unique twist of the protagonists of the movie, the people we're supposed to be rooting for, they commit a murder themselves. It's the first murder committed, or so we think. You know, and as I laid out, it puts the audience in a weird state emotionally. It doesn't do anything exceptional. You know, it's a solid slasher. It's a solid attempt at the slasher formula with the twist, but it doesn't really do anything exceptional that ever got it to the level of Scream, even with Jennifer Love Hewitt. Now, don't get me wrong. This movie's impact on pop culture is huge because of Jennifer Love Hewitt. And because it launched, you know, particularly the careers of Jennifer Love Hewitt and Freddie Prinze Jr. and Sarah Michelle Gellar, and especially Jennifer Love Hewitt, who went on to become one of the biggest actresses in Hollywood. But in and of itself, I wouldn't go as far as to say it's a classic, because it does everything solid enough, but it doesn't quite go to that next level. It feels like there's something missing to truly make I Know What You Did Last Summer a classic. And then my other complaint would probably be the kills. And part about that is like, look, I get it. Kevin Williamson, if you don't know, when the writer of the novel, and if you didn't know this was a novel first, Lewis Duncan, he approached Kevin Williamson about writing the screenplay for the movie adaptation. He wanted to, and he expected Kevin Williamson to kind of have some of that meta, self-referential tone of Scream. And Kevin Williamson decided, no, I kind of want to do more of a standard 80s style slasher. And while I think that was probably a smart decision, you know, I think that, you know, I don't know how a more meta approach would have worked with a movie like this. I think what this movie needed, and part of what it's missing a little bit, is the kills. The kills are very bland. I think this needed much better kills. And these are just very bland kills. They're not particularly gory. We get a lot of cutaway kills. We see kind of the sweet aftermath of the kill with Max's character. That was gnarly, but the kills themselves, it's very, I've seen them 100 times in other slashers and probably done better. You know, hook to the chin, hook to the gut. You know, we don't even see Sarah Michelle Gellar's character. We don't even see her death. So the kills are kind of lacking. You know, again, in the case of Max's character, it's a hook to the chin. Pretty much everyone else, it's a hook to the gut, and that's kind of disappointing. But so yeah, the kills leave a lot to be desired. And then I don't love the ending to this. Now, of course, the reveal is that they didn't kill anybody. They thought they had killed this Ben Willis character, who turned out to be, you know, a murderer himself. That kind of twist. I think that's a cool twist. I think the whodunit aspect is pretty well done in this movie. And I think that's a cool twist that not only did they not kill Ben Willis, but Ben Willis himself was kind of fucked up. But I don't love the jump scare ending. I don't love the I still know on the glass. And I don't love the kind of jump scare ending to this. It felt very forced. Don't love the ending at all. But yeah, outside of that, overall, though, I do have positive feelings towards I Know What You Did Last Summer, guys. I think it's a little underappreciated, although, you know, I can understand why it's in the shadow of Scream. But no matter what, it obviously had a huge cultural impact with the careers it launched. And yeah, overall, I enjoy it every time I watch it, even though it doesn't quite rise to the level of being a classic. I do think it's a very solid slasher movie, and I enjoy it every time I watch it. So you know what? I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. That's where good, not quite great. That's where I kind of stand with it. But okay, guys, that's going to do it for me today. And I will see you guys later. And what do you think of I Know What You Did Last Summer, 1997? Let me know in the comments section below, and I will see you guys later. Take care.